You really want to find out, what does your ideal man look like to you? Let's go into that. Let's analyze that.
And we're
ideal
not
man.
talking physical here, are we? Or are we?
In part.
Yes.
I think, I mean, obviously appearance is big. I think there's women that, in partners that some of them don't want men with no hair, so taller than you, whatever the case may be. But that certainly is only one component, the physical attractiveness. I think you're going to have to look at the entire person and get a good idea. And the way I would recommend to women to involve themselves in that is get a good clean sheet of paper, put your mind in brainstorming gear, if you will, and just let it rip as to what would your ideal man be like, what are the characteristics, what are the values, let it fall out of you, don't try to censor it. Once you've gotten that list, then go back and put a P for preference upon those values or characteristics of your man, and then an E for essential. And what you want to try to end up with after this exercise is 5 E's, 5 essential things without which it could not be your permanent ideal partner. Mm-hmm. And go with those. That's your litmus test. You've got 5 of those essentials, and stick with it and hold that high standard and do not deviate from it.
It seems to me that would say almost as much about yourself as it does about the partner you're looking for.
Other awareness is really self-awareness always. You have to find your own values, and those must obviously align with your man. It would be very difficult for me to conceive that a woman would choose ideals and values and characteristics that are incongruous with her own. I don't see that happening, but I guess it's possible.
But what about those women who do seem to know exactly what they're looking for in a man, but keep making the wrong choice?
I certainly find this consistently in my partners as well as the counseling I do, that many women do say that, I can't seem to trust my judgment anymore. After I've made so many mistakes, what's going on? So what I would suggest is to do a life plan analysis. Go back, find out about your cores, values, your emotional maturity level back as you were developing as a person. Maybe you start out in your teenagehood and look at those stages of your life, how you've developed. See at those particular points when you had the relationships that didn't last, that were troublesome, that caused you a lot of pain, and try to analyze at that point where you were in your values. Have you changed from that now? What are your values now? What do you really want out of it? Have you emotionally matured? And go back and see the mistakes you made. And very often it's a matter of being hormonally driven. So you want to see how instead of getting dad, you got cad. And you really must be able to look through that hormonal haze and find the true values. And hopefully you will have grown at this point in your life to look back and put some sort of pattern on the life and learn from your mistakes.
Because looking for those patterns can be very painful.
It is. I think you must be judicious about that and go into it. But certainly I think it can be very valuable if you expend the time to do that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that we should almost do a portrait of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Of what our values are and our expectations, and also what's happened in the past. What happens after that?
Well, I think, once we've seen to an extent where we've been conditioned by our past relationships, whether family or other people that we've met, I think then you want to get to the point when you want to start to design your man plan, as I call it. And at that point, we want to get into having a set series of things that you can do to attract and then keep that man that is going to last you for your lifetime.
Well, that sounds like a whole separate subject in itself. We're out of time now, but I hope you'll join us again, and we'll go into a little bit greater detail about the man plan.
Love to. Thanks for having me.
This has been Robin Coy for Women with Vision, and now it's back to Adrian in the studio. Welcome back to Women with Vision. Over the past 30 years, our attitudes to things such as love, sex, partnership and marriage have greatly changed. But despite the decline in formal wedding vows, women are still seeking men with whom to form permanent partnerships. But who is Mr. Right? If you're seeking him, where do you find him? To answer these questions, I'm joined once again by Jack Carney, our relationship consultant from Partners for Life. Hi Jack, welcome back to the show.
See you again.
Jack, on our last segment you talked about a man plan. Now I guess this isn't something that you formulate in the taxi on the way to the Desperate and Dateless ball. I'm sure it's much more serious than that. Tell me about the man plan.
Hopefully you're going to put a little more effort and time into it than that. But I guess the best man plan, of course, I would recommend for you would be to Be involved with a personal development person or a permanent partnership agency like Partners for Life and myself. But if you're going to do it on your own, then here's, I think, some good suggestions for you. I think first, obviously, you've got to meet your man, and this really means that you're going to have to go for the volume approach.
Volume.
Volume.
So,
Get as
like
many as you can in there and pick and choose.
Sounds like good marketing practice.
Absolutely. So I think it comes down to you've got to be prepared to spend the time to go out and look. And I think many of us, women and men as well, that if you think about it, we spend a lot more time looking for an apartment or a used car than for the person we want to spend the rest of our life with. So you have to devote time and energy to it.
Okay.
Very much so.
So before we actually go into the man plan, how about we just briefly recap on what we discussed in the last segment?
Well, remember we were saying the analysis of your own needs. You've got to look at your own values and where you've been in your life and the mistakes that you've made and the relationships that didn't last. And then we looked at that essential, the 5 E's that would typify the characteristics of your ideal man.
So the 5 essential things that
Absolutely.
you want.
That's your litmus test. You've got those values. This is what you want to compare every man that you're meeting with. And I think one of the most important things to add to those 5, whatever they may be, is that the first thing that you want to find at an appropriate time with the man is, does he really want a permanent partnership, a committed relationship? It's very important.
That early in the relationship, you ask the question?
As early as you can, I would recommend that. Now, you don't want to go up to him just to first and say, hey, are you sure you want to burn a partnership, or I'm not going to talk to you? Well, you want to be easy about it, but nevertheless, at some point, you do want to get cut to the quick as soon as you can, appropriately.
So you're not wasting your time.
Exactly. I mean, why bother if they're just there for the date and what have you, really? I mean, and possibly that you could make the friend out of them, and that would be nice. But if you're looking for that permanent partner, that's what I think you want to do.
Okay, so what's the next step when you've got your 5 E's and your 5 P's and you're ready to go?
I think you'd want to write down 6 activities, venues, situations that you think you're more likely to meet your ideal man based upon your 5 essentials. Obviously, if your essentials of a man are putting him more into a sporting complex, then you're not going to find him at a philosophical convention.
Sure.
They have to be consistent with your values. So once you've got that down, I think you want to look perhaps and survey what the in-places are in your particular community and get info on special events that might be happening. And for instance, there's a singles convention coming up this Saturday at Gambaro's restaurant. Good place to go to meet possible partners, and because obviously people are going to be there for that reason. As well as the usual single meeting places. Consider art galleries, libraries, conferences, auctions, street fairs. I think also to join business organizations like SWAPSA, Salespeople with a Purpose, and also take a good look at your workplace. So all of these, I think, are rather unusual places that you might not think, and then also take courses in adult education at the various TAFEs.
Right.
Then you can pick out the areas that you're more likely to find people that have those compatibilities that might have one of those or more of those 5 E's that are so essential to you.
So does this mean that we're going to spend the rest of our life hanging out at the Museum of Fine Arts, waiting for Mr. Right to drop by?
No, I would hope you'd be more proactive than that, that popular word. You're going to have to change, and you're going to have to really be committed to getting volume. And if you're not finding it at your particular art gallery or wherever, then you're going to have to change your venue and go look and find out where they are. But again, it has to be consistent, I think, with your 5 E's or your values. You want to go to the places that are going to more likely have the sort of ideal man that you're looking for.
It sounds quite intimidating. How many people give up before they even start?
I think very many. I think the attrition rate must be pretty grim. It is difficult. I would recommend one way to handle that is commit to a schedule.
A schedule.
A schedule. Absolutely. Put yourself down. I'm going to meet 3 men per day if you're really adventurous, or 3 men per week if you're not.
Wow.
But nevertheless, set a schedule up and stick to it, and also stick to your high standards, and be determined but not desperate. There is a difference there.
There is, isn't there? A very big difference.
But be determined, I think, and know, I think, how to make yourself into an intimate person. Become intimate. Become available. Perhaps a good metaphor is to feel like a reporter for a newspaper. Go out there and in a sense have fun, interview people, pay attention to what you're doing. Look, be interested. There's nothing that draws a man out more than that you have an interest, and we all know this, whether men or women. So you're looking to open up, and courage is required. I think to risk that intimacy is necessary.
And maybe to lighten up too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you never know. If nothing else, you might gain a few very good friends out of it, if not a partner.
Yeah, and I think that engaging smile, that easiness where you're not going to feel abused because the person is not going to be your husband for the rest of your life, and that happens. There's chocolate cake, there's strawberry cake, not everyone is like that. It doesn't mean that you're any less valued as a person. So it's an effort that has to be made, and I think you have to have the courage of the salesman that goes knocking on the door. 100 calls and you might find the one, and that's what you have to do.
Okay, so say you think you found Mr. Right. How do you make sure it is Mr. Right and you're not making another mistake?
Well, again, I said that first one that you really want to cut to very quickly, is he interested in a permanent partnership? And then start to talk values at the earliest stage. What do you really value? Do we have a consistent value here? Is it only hormones? And many of us find that very difficult to cut from just the hormone push into really rationally looking at whether those values are consistent. That's the most important thing, and the maturity level itself.
And is that it? Is there any other part of the plan that we need to know?
Well, I think if you really get to values and assess those of both of you, if you look at the emotional maturity level of both of you, which really is going to come out with how able you're to just express who you are. That, I think, takes that emotional maturity and confidence of who you are, and that person is going to want that, and if they don't, well, then you'll find someone that does. But be yourself. I like this acronym. I said, to be beautiful is to be you to the full. So beautiful is being yourself to the fullness, and it doesn't matter, I think, even if you're not a 10 in the Hollywood version of that, you can be as attractive as any of them if you are truly being yourself. That's the key.
That's a lovely way to end. Thank you, Jack Carney, once again for your wonderful advice. My guest has been Jack Carney from Partners for Life. He's a relationship consultant. And my name is Robin Coy. You've been watching Women with Vision, and now it's back to Adrian in the studio.